Okay, I'm just gonna be frank. I'm a little fucking depressed. I've lived in total isolation and haven't had direct contact with another human in like a month. Can't even really call people because at this point I have like no one to call. My online presence has kind of became my only way to communicate with the outside world, and that last video probably had the biggest work to outcome ratio of anything I've created. Maybe not the Vinland Saga video, if you count the amount of time I was just thinking about it while going about my life, but pretty bad, and I had high hopes for that last video too. Also really stung that me upgrading my sound equipment somehow made the video worse because it introduced user error as a factor in the audio process, and I completely fucked that up. I fixed it, but I fucked it up. And it's been kinda hard to be motivated to do anything when there's this lingering cloud of no one is actually going to see this shit. And the whole thing left me kinda discouraged, and I've spent the last several days in kind of an unhappy haze. I've been exercising, taking care of myself, all that shit, but I've been going to bed around 3 p.m. if you get my drift. But yesterday I got a comment which made me think of something. A person commented saying, "Why don't you try to rebrand your channel?" And this is something that everyone has been telling me to do for a very long time, and I have known I should do for a very long time. But after spending a few days in a frustrated state of mind of it's hard to work on shit when you have this pressure of how do you get people to see it, I was just in the right emotional state to finally actually accept defeat and fucking start doing this. And this was the precipitating incident that just made it click like, yeah, I've been meaning to do this for fucking months. Now would be the perfect time. So we're gonna start rebuilding this fucking channel into something that has a chance in hell of being seen by other people. Thank you, Alim Nasuchin. I can't pronounce names. Also, this person suggested I reach out to Super Eye Patch Wolf because the videos have the same vibe apparently. I will say, that is not a coincidence. I adore Super Eye Patch Wolf, so I guess it makes sense that there'd be some influence or at least mutual taste there. I don't think Super Eye Patch Wolf has time to be helping me with my thumbnails. That's like if a viewer asked me for help with their homework. Yes, I could do it, but there's probably another candidate to do that who, you know, is a better use of their time. But that said, appreciate it. Very nice of you to say, been meaning to do this. Finally, let's try to fucking do this. And while every aspect of my channel does not lend itself to marketing at all, the biggest thing is probably the thumbnails and branding. I don't like cluttered thumbnails. I like relatively simple ones. And because I don't put a lot of work into my thumbnails, that translates to screenshots from the show. There were, a few words on some of them, but mostly just screenshots. In general, these are good images. That's mostly a byproduct of the fact that the people who made the show were talented. They might be relatively pleasing to look at. I'd say the Vinland Saga one is not great. These, not really either. I do find this one funny, but no one else does. But these do not stand out at all, even if they work good in isolation. Also, titles. I have a couple good titles. The Man Smarter Than Rick Sanchez. That's a good title. Dr. Stone and Zombies. Good title. Some of these are kind of muddled. I love Trust in Kaiji because it's a double entendre, but few people will probably like that. Trust in Kaiji in general is very precious to me, so I'm probably not going to change much about it, but I understand that's kind of a cult video. I don't expect that one to be huge. The Vinland Saga video, not a great image, very dark. Not a bad frame, but again, it doesn't stand out. And the name is just terrible. So I've been thinking of ways to try to improve my thumbnails. The biggest thing that affected me is I'm a big fan of Emperor Lemon, and I love everything this guy does talking about YouTube, and he put out the YouTube thumbnail metagame and gave a few advices, and I am trying to take them to heart. And that combined with other concerns that I just have, I have a few ideas about what I need to do. And the goals I've set for myself are this: establish visual consistency between the thumbnails where every thumbnail looks like they are made by the same person. Where I think the ideal there is you can take a bunch of people on Anitube, throw a fuckload of thumbnails in a big pile, and you would be able to look at them and go, oh, obviously this cluster over here, those were all made by the same person, because you can just tell by the way they're done. A little less important than that would be branding, putting something in the video that links it back to me. I have very little personality on the internet at this point, so it would mostly be just make it look good in a way that could be attributed to me later, I guess. Third, and this is something Emperor Lemon brought up that I hadn't really thought of, I want the tone of the thumbnail to match the tone of the video, which for me, my tone is very middle of the road. I'm not super quippy and jokey, but I'm not super self-serious either, at least I try not to be. Last but not least, it needs to be visually pleasing to look at and eye-grabbing in general. That will be hard, but let's see what we come up with. It's hard to know what to do with that until the others are settled, but let's see. And to do a little research, I looked at some other YouTubers to look at their thumbnail. We will do that now. Let's start with iPatchWolf, who I love. Shut the fuck up, Super iPatchWolf. I'm doing a video. First thing about Super iPatchWolf, his thumbnails are just fucking gorgeous. He's probably the only YouTuber I follow where his thumbnails are so fucking pretty and so nice to look at that several of them, you could just make them into a fucking poster collage and it would work. It would be great. That is not surprising. I don't know his exact background, but I'm pretty sure Super iPatchWolf has a background in composition, visual design, animation, something like that. He knows how to compose a really good image, and you can fucking see this. His older videos, not so much, but they're all competent. And his newer ones, like I said, they're works of art in and of themselves. One thing I notice about him that is so clever when you see it, Super iPatchWolf has a lot of depth to his thumbnails. A lot of people on YouTube, they just have images that are all kind of at the same level and then maybe text over it. If you look at this, like he softened the text in the background and has harder text in the front, where there are 3 Z levels to this thumbnail, that is a lot of complexity for what it is. Same up here. There's a level of depth here that is really fucking hard to get on a short space. I don't know if that's relevant to me, but that is so fucking good. Unless you're as talented a graphic designer as Super iPatchWolf is, trying to emulate him is almost silly because you're not gonna fucking do it. Like, look at this. This is something you can only do if you already know what you're doing. That's not an amateur thumbnail. One thing about his composition skills that is relevant is Super iPatchWolf really fucking knows how to give a unique outline, a silhouette, and a negative space to an image. I find it funny that he used almost the exact same screenshot for his Part 5 video as my Giorno video. That's another danger with using screenshots, is there's a few obvious moments where multiple people are going to go for them. There's no real way around that. Just incredible design from an incredible creator. You look at these thumbnails, and even though none of them do anything that crazy or innovative, there's just a level of confidence there that it lets you know the person who made the video is a professional man who knows how to fucking make shit, which he is. Okay, let's go in the extreme other direction. Make of that what you will. I actually don't jump in on the Jeff Thu hate. I mean, don't get me wrong, if he ever crossed me in any way, I would unload on him so fucking much, but I don't see the point of just talking shit, because he's just a normal person. Most of the people you know have the same approach to work that fucking Jeff does, it's just he happens to work in a field where that looks really fucking bad. Okay, how does this relate to the things I was talking about? The branding is fucking extreme. Incredible consistency between videos in that they all have the exact same rim. Jeff just broke 1 million subscribers. Obviously, if you can see something that is visually identified with him in any way, you're going to immediately know who it is. I will give Mother's Basement very high marks for branding and consistency between thumbnails. His big problem is they just don't look that good. They're all fine, but they are not very creative, not very innovative. They're just show images and words arranged in a way that kind of gives you the point. And I think that his super consistent branding method actually fucks that up a little bit because his thumbnails are very crowded to begin with, and he's only making it way fucking worse by cutting things off. Which I considered doing something like this, and I would like to think I could choose a better texture than a weird cartoon wood panel thing. I don't know why he did that. That was actually an advantage for him, probably, because no other anime person is going to do that, because it's so out of step with the mainstream aesthetic, even though these are pretty standard Anitube thumbnails in other regards. They're all made with care, but they're very straightforward collages of, you know, characters thrown together with the name of the video. Let's look at Digibro, or Digine, as I think you say it that way. Well done. Digi has had a big few days, but right now we're just looking at their thumbnail. Digi has explicitly talked about making thumbnails. He uses the phrase big anime face a lot, saying just throw a cute face with big eyes, take up a lot of the screen, make it attention grabbing. Very, yeah, you see a lot of that. Or things that are a little more collage-ish with some words thrown on. A lot of Digi's thumbnails are very similar to what I do, which again is not a fucking coincidence at all in this case. Digi's easily my biggest role model in what I'm fucking doing. I'm trying really hard not to say he, because I'm not entirely sure what Digi is choosing to do with pronouns yet. I don't think that's been clarified, but you know what I mean. Some inconsistency where the occasional thumbnail is just a face shot or, you know, a switch in this case. And it's another case where there's such a link between Digi and the mainstream anime audience that really these videos do just need to catch your eye. If they do that, you know who Digi is. So, and I'm starting to think that this school of thought on making thumbnails becoming what I'll call Anitube standard, I think that's become really counterproductive for a lot of people, because I'll show you in a second, when you just start looking at anime accounts in general, a lot of their thumbnails, when you take them as one big group, they all kind of blend in together. There's a very definite style where even if each thumbnail individually is perfectly fine and perfectly pleasant to look at, if you just stand a couple feet away from your computer and just look at them, they kind of blend together. Let's just look at a few mid-rangey anime accounts for more research on what I'm talking about. I don't watch that many Anitubers really. I'm learning about more people because I'm more active on social media lately, and that's made me want to branch out a bit more with viewing habits. Just seemed like a good idea. Alright, looking at core. Thumbnails, pretty straightforward. A lot of big anime faces, some a little more complicated. Text on the screen, show elements. That's weird. Like I said, all of these are competently made. There's a decent deal of consistency with the approach to thumbnails for this one page, but very straightforward. Here's a few other people. Let's look up. This is just who. Shut up. This is just who have I been seeing on Twitter. Okay. Very similar, more collage-y. A lot of faces, a lot of characters, sometimes there's words. I will say this is busier. And I've noticed that for what I'll call the mainstream style of Anitube thumbnails, the primary axis seems to be how busy is the image. Where basically everyone has the same kind of stuff in the thumbnail, it's just how many different elements do they cram in. Again, my videos. This is basically Anitube standard, just no text, no border, just a very simple version of that. It's the same type of elements, just far fewer of them in my case. But when you look at Anitubers in general, the main variable with their thumbnail is just how many iterations of the same types of elements show up every time. Let's look up man mode, okay. And same kind of thing. You can tell on this, some of these are pretty carefully constructed. I'd point to that as a good thumbnail. That's pretty good. These show a decent amount of thought in the composition, but very straightforward. And it's not that these don't match each other, but there's no uniting theme in their construction. You can kind of tell that each of these was made as a one-off. And I'm fucking going senile and typing words as I say them. And we'll look at Urban the Myth as a last mid-rangey type person. And I found this one interesting because it's the same kind of situation, but there are a few genuinely great thumbnails in here. I would point to this. This is a very good thumbnail. Just, that's a well-constructed image. You know, the Super Eye Patch Wolf would be proud, I assume. This, likewise, very good thumbnail. Good color contrast, good composition. This is just interesting. This is almost a great thumbnail. I think the face is kind of clumsily thrown on there. I think that could be done better, or potentially just have the face not be there at all, but that's still a very good thumbnail. It's almost a great thumbnail, but not quite there, I think. Several of these are pretty good. The main thing I noticed with this one is you can see phases almost of thumbnail strategy. You can see in this little stretch here, there was one approach. You can see these two are kind of paired together. Maybe in here they were getting a little more eclectic with what they were doing. At this point, they're just trying to make the thumbnail really attractive and advertising, which that I would call that a success. And the most recent video, they're just trying to make the thumbnail very attractive and very advertising, even if it doesn't connect to everything else really. And in a way, he's kind of going back to this rectangle theme he had back here. I'd actually say if he turned that into a consistent style, that could actually probably work very well. The main thing here is just a lack of unity, where there are streaks of unity, but it doesn't really tie together into one coherent whole. And that's a trend that I noticed so much when I started paying attention to thumbnails, that there are plenty of people that can make a good thumbnail. There are far fewer people who can make a good thumbnail that looks like and matches their other thumbnails. The most visual consistency was fucking Jeff Thu, and he has that ugly fucking border around, where if there wasn't the need to compulsively brand, he never would have put that there, because no one would ever say that makes the thumbnail look better. I actually doubt he would say that. I think it's just an open branding decision. This is not a small guy, but actually did do something interesting. I am not a big Nuxtaku viewer. He is about as different from me in his approach to this as you can get, while still arguably doing kind of the same thing. Just a very different person than I am. I definitely give him credit for thumbnails though. These are not super well composed. These are definitely not something I would hang up on my wall as independent works of art. But there is a lot of visual consistency between those, and it's super easy to tell that these were all made by the same person and who that is, because his fucking avatar guy shows up in all of them. And I think he's in a special position where he can get away with this and kind of clumsily throwing that in there and having thumbnails that are kind of messy, because his personality is being this really outgoing, kind of chaotic guy from what I can tell. So I think that works out well for him, where it creates an opportunity to really aggressively market himself in the thumbnails without betraying the tone of what they're supposed to represent, which, good for him. And one thing that he did, which really stuck with me, is I saw fucking this, and that is a good thumbnail, because even if that is not an amazing work of art, whatever your taste is, I don't care. When you look at that, you just know that was such a big fucking time commitment, and he fucking cared. Like, you just know he really gave a shit about getting people to watch that video, where I don't know if he draws it himself or subs out to an artist, but the fact that someone took the fucking time to carefully construct and paint that image really lets you look at the thumbnail and know, yeah, this was a serious effort. He fucking cared. And being able to broadcast that amount of care is something that I think is a meaningful takeaway from this. And the last person I looked at, and it makes me fucking mad. Pause and select, because his thumbnails are fucking godly. These are fucking amazing. And not just they're really well constructed, these are so in line with my fucking taste. In college, I took a graphic design class, and I actually got in trouble, not seriously, but the teacher had to tell me to stop doing grayscale images with red highlights, because I like that so much that I just naturally started doing it, and they had to point out, you do this for every assignment, fucking do something else. And you can fucking tell Pause and Select agrees with me. And there are so many other reasons these thumbnails are great. They have incredible silhouettes, very good negative space. And part of why that is because everything's in grayscale, just popping a few things in the color creates so much contrast with the background that even in the original image, they were very well composed and had great silhouettes there, but being able to enhance it like that, it just pops so well. And like Super Eye Patch Wolf, he manages to have several layers of depth with the image. You have the opaque lettering on the front, very hard and obviously on top. You have this soft but colorful poppy image in the middle, and then you have the hazy background that kind of fades out of view. Really obvious hierarchy of visual information. These are so fucking good. I don't really care for Pause and Select's videos too much, they're not really to my taste, but this channel has so much fucking style. And Pause and Select really overcomes the issues I saw with most of the mid-range Anitubers, where if you take that Anitube standard style, because it is so reliant on anime screenshots, especially of characters, it is full of these vibrant colors all over the spectrum, a lot of saturation, a lot of brightness, a lot of big attention-grabbing shapes. And when you have something this low-key, where most of the image is not obtrusive and kind of just fades into the background, but there's a few attention-grabbing points. If you took every channel we looked at, including mine, and threw the thumbs into just a big randomized pile, it's not even a question. The first person you would be able to identify as one channel would be these thumbnails, and they would stick out like a sore thumb, but still be visually pleasing and well constructed. These are just fucking incredible, and it probably has a lot to do with why Pause and Select, despite being such a niche channel in the scheme of things at least, manages to be reasonably popular. 30,000 subs isn't nothing. Like we said, Super Eye Patch Wolf, very good at using text, but this is a style of font. The really tall, all caps font with no serifs and really consistent line width. This has become so popular over the last several years that it's almost a cliche. As incredible as this looks, it will probably be dated a couple decades from now because these fonts are so popular. My font I use is a variant of that style. And Super Eye Patch Wolf can get away with using a very popular style of font because he uses it so well. But almost every single video here uses the same font, but rather than having the really vibrant font against a colored background, he inserts rectangular black backgrounds for the font, which is generally not done and really makes the font stand out. And the font is this nondescript all caps print font where I can't tell offhand what that is, but it would not surprise me at all if that was just one of the defont faults from fucking Word. I feel like it's become so normal to try to have these flashy, appealing images that if you do something kind of nondescript but do it well, it stands out so much more than the things that try to be in your face about it. And holy shit, I could stare at these all day. They're so fucking great. I literally look at these thumbnails and I'm mad that I didn't have this idea first. If Pause and Select didn't exist, I would be like paying him to make these for me. But I think this channel is teaching me more than any of the other ones I looked at, where I think I definitely want my thumbnails to be kind of understated in a way that still shows that they're well crafted and clever. And this has given me a lot of inspiration for that. I did try to come up with a few thoughts of how I should do this. I try to think of the tone of my videos, but I'm not entirely sure what that actually means. I make analytical videos. I want my videos to be smart. I also want them to be fucking approachable and non-douchey about that. I approach my videos with the assumption that if I'm ever hard to understand, it's my fucking fault, not the viewer. Channels which try to appear smart, they so often fall into the trap of complexity for the sake of complexity, and I fucking hate that. What the fuck? That was weird. I'm in a horror movie, apparently. I also try to make videos that are fairly emotionally resonant, at least with the questions they approach. That's me being self-indulgent. And I don't like to be entirely self-serious, but I'm more serious than not. And it's hard to know how to convey that tone visually. I guess more than anything else, it means just avoid extremes of being too self-serious or not self-serious at all, but we'll see. And visually attractive, we'll figure that out. Had a few ideas. I did consider a border. I think Jeff's is fucking hideous, but I would consider a border if I thought of something that wasn't completely ugly. I thought about doing my shade of green as just a rim around the outside, but that would probably look like fucking shit. If I made it a thin line like Urban does, maybe I could get away with that, but it's probably ill-advised. I thought about doing a little plant thing. Someone I love who came up as an example in Emperor Lemon's video was Fredrik Knudsen, which, first off, wonderful icon. These thumbnails are not works of art, but they all get the point across very well, and incredible visual consistency, and not that many people do this. He puts the logo in a way that is very brutal and intrusive and blatant, but also clean and kind of respectable, which a lot of people don't do. People who try to have an actual symbol or logo kind of usually just clumsily throw it in somewhere, or it's intrusive and annoying where it's over the image. This, it has its own self-contained little spot, which it's not super pretty, but it's fine for what it is. Very strong visual consistency. And one thing that's cool about that is, even though his actual name is Fredrik Knudsen, people know him as Down the Rabbit Hole, or when they're referring to his content, that's the phrase they will use. I'm considering that I might need to just change my fucking name, but if I had an idea for a video series or a name for the actual videos, that could help me get around it. I'm not sure about that, but it's an idea. And one thing I added just to cross out, there will never be an avatar or an image of me or my fucking face unless it's as a joke, like on the Black channel. That would just, no, that fills me with disgust thinking about it. My font is not especially pleasing to look at. I love Ostrich, it's why I use it. I think I'm going to keep using it in videos, but I don't know that it would be so good on the actual thumbnails. I don't like words on thumbnails in general because it just feels cluttered and inelegant and trashy when I look at it. And like I said, there are people who work words in a way that works perfectly well, but it just doesn't jive with me. Something feels wrong with me if I'm not conveying what I want to convey with just images in the thumbnail. It always feels cluttered when I do it. I just don't care for them. Color in general, not sure what my approach would that be. I tried to think of images, icons, or things that would be symbolic to me in some way, and the list was pretty unhelpful. Mushrooms, maybe my pipe. Psychedelics are obviously a pretty recent addition to my life. They've become extremely important. I don't know, mystic imagery, is there a way to make that not cringy as fuck? My ceramic dragon, which is the black icon, and I have various plants, cactuses. Yeah, the only thing I really thought of is maybe like a mushroom or mycelium thing around the border could be cool, but I don't know of a way to make that good. I also had the thought of, what if I had like a mycelium network or a spore print as a, whole other thing against a black background, then I put anime stuff in front of it. But then that would just be the inner workings of a crazy person inserting bizarre images that matter to himself but have nothing to do with the video. So, yeah, I probably don't need to. One thing that I feel strongly about, I want to preserve strong silhouettes and interesting negative space. Very consistently, the thumbnails that I thought looked the best were ones that had very strong negative space and strong composition, and no matter what else I do, I want to preserve that. I'm not necessarily the most skilled at composition, but that is my priority. And I thought of a few ways that could maybe make that work. And like with the Nux Taku thing, I think if you can make thumbnails in a way where they still look nice, but it also just conveys the amount of work you put into it, I think that's really cool. And I had the idea of, what if you actually went so far as to just use physical media to make your thumbnails that you took a picture of? The big problem with that is I am not an especially skilled artist, and that would probably backfire horrendously. So, yes. And one final idea I had was, in Emp Lemon's video, he talked about negative space, and how specifically there are people who will set part of the background to the same color as the background color for the YouTube webpage. It's kind of like having transparency for the thumbnail where it usually doesn't support that. And he pointed out a weakness of some people will be in day mode, some people will be in night mode, that will alter the composition. And that gave me a crazy idea where, according to Emperor Lemon, there are people doing this, but that made me think there is probably a way to take that all the way to the level of just pure black magic fuckery, which I don't think anyone else has tried yet. And I want to run a few experiments to see if my idea might work. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with that. But yeah, I'm not doing so great right now, and because my internet presence has become really my only link to other human beings, that's finally put me in a place where I'm willing to admit, okay, It's time to actually fucking fix the shit that people have been telling me is a problem and I've known as a problem for a long fucking time. Let's try to turn the channel into something people might actually like to go to. I'm comfortable saying, let's just table the other stuff. I will be experimenting a bit, after which we will review a few designs and see how it goes. I will keep you posted. This video is like my 4th or 5th attempt to make a video in the last 3 days. It has not been going well. On an unrelated note, Monster is an incredible show, but I don't know what I'm going to do with that because it's almost too good and the themes are so complicated that I don't know if I'm going to have a good answer for them by the end of it. Also, it's a huge time commitment, so it's a huge risk-reward ratio where it's going to take me 60 episodes to get to the end of something where it's like, oh, fuck, I don't know how to solve the problem of evil. In the process of watching this show, I'm basically going to have to like attain enlightenment by the end of it if I want to be able to make a good monster video. So, you know, that's fun. That's the other thing going on in the background. Yay, let's make some thumbnails and then eventually the other shit too.